everyone. Leslie Cornwell, Midwifery Business Consultation. I have my good friend Casey Messmer with Messmer Marketing. We're doing a Facebook Live event. There's a couple people on in the backdrops, and they're both more shyer people. So they just asked us to do a little seminar chat, and they'll listen to the backdrops and ask good questions. So yeah, if you want to join us, we are on Facebook Live right now, and we'll have this on YouTube later for everybody to look at. So thanks for joining me, Casey.
Yeah, I am happy to be here. It's been a while since we've chatted.
It has. I know we did our ultrasound conference and we told each other we needed a sabbatical for a little while. So.
We also had so much time. There was a lot of time. There was a lot of time and energy involved in that. So it is good to take a little bit of break and come back and reassess from there. Perfect. And I'm feeling really good. And that went really well. So feeling really good about
it. We're already planning the next one for the spring. So that's super exciting. But yeah, I think when I and you talked before the recording started, just common questions I get as consults and common things you get from birth professionals when they call you. I see a consistent theme of overwhelming with marketing campaigns, knowing where to start. And I would love for your expertise to help with birth professionals, whatever level budget they're in, because I know we get some that are just starting out and don't have the income yet, and some that are expanding to the next level.
Right. I think a lot of this can be really important when you're creating your business plan as well. Like from the get-go, is you need to know who your target market is. You need to know who your target audience is. So people are building birth centers or they're midwives and they don't know which portion of the population they're trying to target with their services. There needs to be a time where you sit down and you say, okay, who's my ideal audience? Who are the people that I want to work with or who would want to work with me? How do we make this work? I need to sit down and think about this. And a lot of times, I mean, I work with people all over the country. I work in California, I work in Texas, I work in Florida, I work in a lot of places, and there's always going to be a different audience for every single person. They have different demographics that they're trying to reach. I work with really interesting birth centers. They're all very different from each other. And so it's really important that when I sit down and talk to them, they know who their target market is, because if they don't, then that's the part that takes up a bunch of my time at the very get-go. So if you know who you are and what you're trying to do before I even come in, that takes a ton of time off of my plate. People end up having to pay me hourly so that I can help them go through all of this information and hone in on that audience. Whereas if you already have that, if you know what you're trying to do, if say you're trying to target a certain part of the population, or you know a certain group of people tends to come to you, it's important to know that from the beginning. And you typically know that when you're starting your birth center or your midwifery practice, you know who's going to be the people who come to you better than I would ever know. So that's a free thing to do.
Yeah. Well, and I think I'm being the consultant on the other end. I do that same thing where they're like, well, I don't know where to go. And we go back to the business plan. We go back to the marketing campaigns. You go back to the basics. Even if you're well established, like, are you not honing in? Because sometimes I think, especially new practices, you're financially desperate. You're like, I'm just going to take any client because I need the money. And that actually cripples your momentum, because your marketing branding should be from day one to your ideal client and get that momentum, versus now you're taking everything and the community doesn't really know exactly who is your ideal client.
Right. And your ideal client is going to be the person who refers other ideal clients, right? Because they're going to know, they're going to be friends with the type of people that you're looking to bring in. And I'm not saying that there's a bad group of people that you could bring into your business.
Your style of who you want to serve based on your beliefs.
Your style of who you want to serve, especially when you're a midwife, these are people you're spending quite a bit of time with. You're getting very cozy with these people, and you want to make sure that that relationship is there. And if you're going for the wrong people from the beginning, you're kind of just looking to get yourself into some sticky situations. Whereas if you're working with the groups of people that you know you want to work with, those are going to be the same people who are going to go back to that group and continue to spread that information along. So you want to be working with them from the beginning. You definitely don't want to just dabble around and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's multiple levels. It's the referral basis, that compounding effect. You're going to get, okay, maybe this lady wasn't the most ideal client. I took her. Guess what? She's going to refer her semi-ideal clients for you. So it's a ripple effect, and it's about litigation. So if you take someone that's maybe pushing your envelope at risk, or maybe you don't have the greatest relationship based on that background and that relationship isn't there, you're increasing your risk with other sides of it. And your marketing campaigns, as you build a strong ideal clientele and a foundation, your budget typically is less and less unless you're trying to expand, because you're going to compound on that referral side. So I definitely think, like you said, from the beginning, knowing really detailed your ideal client.
Right, because this is not Amazon. They are not buying, a book from you or whatever from the internet. This is something that they're coming to you for a very long period of time. And if they're unhappy, you're going to hear that they're unhappy. And we want to hear that people are happy, because that's a whole nother marketing side of this. Is if people are unhappy, then you have a whole nother marketing side that you don't even want to get into. We like to try to keep people on the positive side, because once you spin towards the negative, then we're taking a dip, and we definitely don't want to go in that direction. We want to stay with the positive momentum from the very beginning.
Yeah, no, I think it is not just like, you can have a pretty logo and you have pretty color themes and you can have a repetition of these warm, fuzzy things people want to hear. But until you really know who you want to serve, short term, long term, what makes you happy, what type, and it's not being selfish. It's a business model. And why did you create this? What are you passionate about? What's your mission? What's your values? And it's going to be a ripple effect of those families you're serving. And as you figure out your ideal client, you're going to figure out where to market to them. So if they're young, hip moms, you're going to go on social media. If you're doing a religious group, they're not on the internet. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you want to know, are you going to serve the Amish, or are you going to serve the trendy 20, 25-year-olds? Like, you need to know who you want to serve.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that as long as you know from the beginning, you're going to kind of bring in those people, and that momentum is going to continue. So you should definitely sit down, especially while you're doing your business plan. And what are you going to give people? You should know better than anybody else what you're bringing to the table. So if you are trying to work with a certain community or in a certain area, you need to make sure that you're doing your best to accommodate them. So they're not driving. If you place a birth center, make sure you put it in the area that you want those people to be, or those people already are, so that they're not commuting forever from you. If you are trying to serve a community and you're a home birth midwife, but you won't drive X amount of miles to meet that community, then that's a problem too. You need to make sure that you're actually bringing things to the table for the people that you want to work with as well. There needs to be things that you can sell yourself with.
Yeah. Well, and the next level, once you figure out, you hone in detail the age, the demographics, the culture, background, beliefs of your ideal client. I mean, even insurance, like, are you going to be in network, out of network? What type of insurance? Like, I even talk to ladies, if there's only a few big out of network payers and you're going to be cash out of network, we hone in on your ideal market as certain employer companies, because they have husbands and families and wives and ideal clients. So sometimes it's based on where your funds and where you want your numbers to go. But taking it to the next level with ideal clients, knowing what they're looking for, not just what you want out of them, but with your branding, what are they looking for?
Right. And one of the main things I get asked about is TRICARE, because a lot of birth centers, a lot of midwives have TRICARE. They accept TRICARE. And okay, so let's talk about that. How many military installations are near you? Like, let's talk about what that community is looking for, how close you are in proximity. Like, there's a lot that we can do with that piece of information. If you know that TRICARE is something that you're going to accept, but then you're not close enough for people, or they feel like they need to travel, then that's not something that they're going to be willing to do. So you really have to think about these things before you even open. This is something that should be starting from the very beginning. I should not be talking to anybody about this after they've already opened their doors, and then they're like, oh, we accept TRICARE, but we're 2 hours away from the nearest military installation.
Yeah, and you can put out all the Facebook, Google ads of the world, but it's not going to help any. So that's why it's really important before, like, and that's why you and I, we do a lot of videos and resources and talk to people ahead of time, because by the time you do a consult or you're thinking about a marketing person to add on your team, you should have really honed in what you want. You've done that community market analysis, you know your competitors, you know your referral basis, you have a good sense, like, when they call, Casey, I'm sure you can say the same thing. Like, hey, I want to market here, here, and here, because these are the families I'm going to serve. Can you help me do this? This is our goals. That's so much easier than they call up and like, I need to market, but I don't know what I got to do for where I got to start.
Yeah. Well, don't pay me to do that. Don't pay me to do it, because at the end of the day, you're going to know better than I'm going to know. You are going to know your area better than I'm going to know your area. I can come in and I can run all the ads all day. I can help you with, website fixes. I can go through all the marketing things that we need to go through, but I can't help you define who your audience is going to be. That's what you have to do. That is really important, like with your area and where you're based at, and that has nothing to do with me. I will help you all day long, but it's a lot easier if you come in and say, hey, this is what I know that I'm going to do, and the confidence coming into that, it's like, hey, let's roll then. Like, don't pay me to talk about it, pay me to do it. I want to do the actual work. I don't want to talk about it. I want to come in with a plan and be able to make it happen, as opposed to, hey, let's just
Well,
chat
and
about
a lot of times what I talk to people about, it's birth professionals. Like sometimes there's the midwives, we think of home birth center, but there's postpartum midwives, there's doulas, there's lactation, there's so many unique niches out there for birth professional businesses. Like I have a great lady I'm consulting with her billing company. And so you definitely want to be able to serve all of these. And I always stress people get nervous as soon as they narrow down their ideal client, they start going down that fear-based side versus the abundance. Like, I made this such a narrowed market of people and I'm such a unique niche. How am I going to find those people? And then I always try that glass half full. Like there's nobody else like you out there. We just need to make a good marketing campaign so they can find you, because they are looking for your services. There is a need. We just have to figure out a branding technique that gets them to find you. Like midwives and birth professionals are overwhelmed with SEO and how to set up their website, and should I do Google ads? Should I do Facebook? Should I do Insta? Like it's overwhelming. So then people tend to shut down.
Right. And that's what you said. That's what I see every single day. It'll be people coming to me and they're like, I think I have a Facebook page. I planned on, getting it started, and now it's been sitting there for 2 years and I don't know what to do. And I'm stuck and I want to bring more people in. And they had every intention. Everybody has every intention. They're like, well, worst case scenario, I'm just starting a Facebook page, so it exists. But even if I don't put anything on there, it's like, oh no, that's not worst case scenario. You start a Facebook page and you don't pay attention to it. One of the things that happens all the time is that pages like that get hacked, which is a whole nother ballgame. But it's also not great. It's not helping you with anything. It's not doing anything.
Well, it gives an image of your practice. Like it's reverse. At least if you don't have anything, they think, oh, she just hasn't worked on that. Versus you put it out there. Now they start wondering, why is there gaps in this? Why is it not being kept up? Because unfortunately, it's a stigma if your website isn't professional, crisp, and gives that confidence. If you've got typos, you haven't, like you have blog posts and you did it regularly, and then all of a sudden you don't do one for 8 months, that sends an image to your clients that if you forget about this and it's too busy and you're falling through the cracks, how are you going to take care of me?
Right, because we have to think about the fact that it's not our generation that's looking at this information, right? So as I age, I'm saying that about myself, as I age, even I know that people are looking for information in a different way than I was looking for information. And we have to think about our audience, not ourselves. And I think that that's one thing that midwives, if anything, get caught up in. They're like, oh, well, this is the way I've always done it, or this is the way I would find it. Okay, well, that's great. That sounds wonderful. But we're not talking about you as a person. We're talking about people who grew up with a completely different form of technology than we did, even than I did. And so they're going to be looking for you in different ways. So while people might say, oh, I went to your website, a lot of people will say, I went to your Facebook page, or I saw you on Instagram. That's not out of the realm of possibility, especially in birth work, because it's such an Instagrammable and Facebook, like social media thing. You can post so much content. It's one thing if it's, like your pediatrician's office isn't posting anything. That's one thing, but we're talking about something where you can post all day about birth work. I can post all day about birth work. I can give you 20 posts a day because there's so much information out there, and people aren't posting it because they're distracted or they're busy or they don't think people are going to see it. But especially as we move through and we get younger and younger people coming through, you have to think about the technology that they're used to. And that's not, soon it won't be websites as much anymore. It'll be, I found you on Instagram, or I found you on Facebook. And a lot of people do say that. They say, I found you on Facebook, because a lot of things are getting shared in these social media groups as well. You have a social media group, like a Facebook group for Midwifery Business Consultation, that gets a lot of people talking in there. And people find referrals through there. And for the same reasons, they find referrals for midwives. I have been in so many groups that are like, when I lived in Missouri, I was in a holistic parents group in Missouri, and so many people recommended like the same 3 midwives because there was only 3 midwives in the area. And I swear sometimes the entire page was just, help me find a midwife, help me find a midwife, and not much else, because people are always looking for midwives and looking for referrals. That's something that you want to be referred to. You don't want to just.
So yeah, it's a good idea. Once you figure out your ideal client, you think reverse. How would that ideal client be looking for me? What would they be thinking? Because as soon as we start putting in keywords, we have our bias of our education and our expertise. They are very, very going to be the basics. What are challenges? I just found out I'm pregnant. Who are care providers in my area? They may not even know what a midwife is. They may not even know about water birth. If you put in words we think are important, that may not even be existing in their knowledge base or their keywords of what they're searching for.
Right, and that's why I tell a lot of midwives, most midwives, I'd say like 90% of the midwives I work with, I tell them to work with Facebook ads, because when we're talking about Google AdWords, we're talking about people typing in things that they already know to look for that. So if they don't know about a midwife and they're going to type in OBGYN, they're not going to type in the words that are going to bring you up anyway.
Hospital birth in my area, yeah, because that's what all
Yeah,
my
and
friends
if they
do.
do, that hospital in your area has already paid an absurd amount of money to outrank you. You will never be able to outbid them on Google AdWords because it's a bidding game. And hospitals pay into that bidding game because it's important to them, because people are always Google searching those exact words and looking for an OB. Like, so they're going to pay an absurd amount of money to always outrank the midwife anyway. So you will never be first, no matter what, because the hospital will always have money for that. And that's why I say go Facebook, because your hospital is never going to put the time and energy into Facebook. Never going to put time and energy into Facebook, or at least making it look the way a midwife could on Facebook.
Well, and I think another direction is branding yourself as the expert. I think midwives, we get nervous. We don't like to get out there. We don't like, when I talk about doing fun, frequently asked question videos, like they're okay with blog posts and typing things, but as soon as they have to get out on the World Wide Web and talking, they get vulnerable, nervous. But I'm like, you are a unique niche. You are a unique expertise. Like if anybody, you want to build that branding, that if anybody has a question, you go to Facebook groups, you put articles out there, you go on interviews, you initiate branding yourself as an expert. It gets you to that level faster than just the referral basis side.
Right, and you can't do that. That's another thing you can't do with Google AdWords, is you can't brand yourself an expert. You really need to be using these social media channels, because that's the way that you brand yourself as an expert. Is you're not going to be competing with a doctor for that, because they're not going to take the time to do that. That's why social media is so effective, because it's an inexpensive way for people like midwives to get their version out, to put it out there in the world and have people actually see it. And it's such an underutilized tool. And so when I get people who call me and are like, oh, we haven't done anything with social media since we started 2 years ago, I'm like, all right, let's start from
A blank slate, yay!
we're gonna start today. This is new, and it's hard, because as you said, midwives don't want to put themselves in front of the camera, right? They don't want to be in the birth photos, because they're like, hey, I'm not even supposed to be here. Like, if it was, they don't want to get in front of the camera. It's uncomfortable. I don't love it myself. So it's really hard to be like, oh, you should do this. But at the end of the day, it's like, if people know that you're there and you are the expert in your community, they're going to feel 500 times more comfortable working with you.
Yeah, and most of the birth professionals we work with are branding themselves. They're not branding a product. They're not branding a big team that they're the backdrop of. They're branding themselves and their reputation. And if you put all over your website all this great knowledge, but you can't find anywhere who is the person I'm actually going to see, who are they, what is their expertise, people aren't going to pick you. So you have to, it's hard for birth professionals to brag about themselves, their knowledge, their expertise, what makes them the best of the best, and why they're so passionate about this. But we have to shift that mindset. We
Right.
have to.
And that's another thing, I'm glad that you bring that up, is we have to see photos and information about you on your website. There's so many times I go to these websites, and not only are they a little outdated, but they don't have a single picture, at least of a midwife. It'll be, a stock
Photos,
photo,
yeah.
or somebody's baby. Maybe they know the baby, but it doesn't change the fact that people don't like working with companies if they don't know if their website is real. It's kind of like how we all feel a little sketched out going to a website that has no face on it and then purchasing something, we're like, okay, are we ever going to see
Is it
this
going
on
to come, or now do they have my credit card? And oh yeah.
It's real. I will always, the first thing that I tell anybody, the first thing, I mean, and this is just advice I give out for free all the time in consultations. Please put your face on your website. Please, like, get a headshot. Do you have a family photo? Can you put a family photo up there? I don't care what you're doing in this photo, but please make sure you look like a real human being. We want to see your face and your name somewhere on this website.
No, I think, yeah, just talking about your knowledge, like even the direction of a blog, it doesn't have to be weekly, it doesn't have to be extensive, it could be once a month, but the SEO component where your website's always being updated, there's always new content, finding those keywords, I mean, if you can filter clients, that your ideal client, you answer those questions, it's going to save you a bunch of time of that conversion rate. So I always, I always stress, give them lots of value first before they even make the first consult or call, that they're feeling like, holy cow, I got to meet this person, because there's so much they know that they've got to be on my team for whatever they're looking for.
Right. And we have to keep in mind that people aren't reading fine print, right? So if you're posting on Facebook, or you could put every piece of information ever on your website, every single thing that anybody could ever want to know, and they still are not going to pay attention to that information. So give them as much as you possibly can. Give them more than enough.
Because you can at least refer if there's a simple email, like especially if you're filtering where it's not a complimentary phone call, but they have to email you contact first. You now can, instead of having a script and typing every single time, you've got all this data you've put together, you've created, you just filter them too. So it's multiple purposes.
Right.
Yeah. So no, we got a couple more minutes. Any words of wisdom, Casey, for marketing, getting going, taking it to the next level you'd like to pass on?
Definitely just start from the very beginning. Factor marketing into your time. Most people are like, oh, I'll worry about that once I get the doors open.
Clients, it's backwards. It's the horse or the cart. Yeah, you're not going to get the clients if you're not marketing, so you can't really.
Yeah. But it's just like, oh, I don't want to put any effort or time into it, and I just suggest always putting effort and time into it. Even if you're not putting money into it, put some of your time into it. Put something into it, because I feel like people so often just skip right over it, and then they open the doors, and then they're like, where are all the people at? And
Well,
then
starting
that's
small and building consistent and gradual, versus you put a ton of money and now that budget ran out, and then all of a sudden you got a couple clients and now there's some money. Like, you want slow and consistent is 20 times better than a ton and then nothing, and then ton and then nothing.
Right. And find somebody, if there's something that you can't do, which I say all the time, midwives can't do everything. You cannot do everything. If you don't know anything about marketing or technology, or you're one of those people who are like, I don't even want to touch it, you can't do everything. If you want to pick some pieces that you feel like you probably could do, and then find somebody to take the other pieces off of your plate and pay them, then that's where I'd start, is say, hey, I could probably do this, but I need somebody to help me do this harder part. And that is how you save money. You pick the pieces that you feel like, oh, realistically, I could probably fit this into my schedule, but this other thing, I am never going to figure this out. So let's start here and find somebody to do just this piece for me. And do it in pieces like that. And eventually a marketer, if they're a good marketer, are going to pay for themselves. The whole goal is to have a marketer pay for themselves and continue to snowball into something bigger. But you want them to be able to pay for themselves over time, and most of them will. And let them surprise you. Even if you don't feel like you know what they're doing, they know what they're doing.
Well, and a lot of birth professionals, I always challenge them, are you self-employed or are you a business owner? Because that's where a lot of the burnout happens, is people say, well, I'm going to mow the lawn, I'm going to do the bookkeeping, I'm going to do the marketing, I'm going to do this. And then they can't be a midwife, and then they can't take care of the bare bones of good quality care in their family, because they're trying to be everything for their business. We should be budgeting, creating accurate fee schedules. That foundation to your business should have a budget for marketing. And even if it's starting $50 a month and then growing as you get the clients, it should be kind of like, I'm not a big fan of Dave Ramsey, but the paying yourself first, like your business should be having core concrete functionality budgeted in, legal support, accounting, marketers, financial advising, consultants. Like there's core things at whatever level you are, part of your fee schedule, your budgets, and then you'll just grow from there.
I 100% agree with that. I think that if you're mowing the lawn at your birth center, or you're cleaning the bathrooms at your birth center, you're not doing that at your own house. And my priority is always my own house first. taking care of my own family first. And once we get into the, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that, you don't realize how many hours of the day that's going to take. Even I hire out people. I'm like, hey, okay, I don't know how to do any accounting. Please.
Well, you know what your expertise is. I mean, I always reinforce to midwives, if you are worth about $150 an hour, and if you can hire somebody for cheaper than that went to school for this, and you don't have to learn, it's not just doing it, it's the training, and you're still not going to be nearly as good as that expert. So.
Yeah, definitely find somebody. I know that that's probably the worst advice I can give to most midwives, because they're like, I don't want to pay, but I'm telling
It's a
you,
mind shift. It's that business
yeah.
versus self-employed. And please learn from me and going that rabbit hole, because initially you'll be okay, but then it just gets momentum, and you start working 100, 120 hours a week, and then you can't get out of that cycle because you didn't create the foundation. So, no.
That's not what we want.
Well, thank you, Casey, so much for your valuable time, and I hope the rest of your day goes well.
Oh, awesome. All right.